All right, welcome everyone. This is the March 10th Climate Action Committee, Energy and Climate Action Committee meeting for Eastham. Call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone. And this meeting will be recorded on video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Eventually I'll get that memorized. Thank you, and we have some, I think, a really good meeting today, and some great folks joining us. So, as usual, we'll just go around very quickly and have everyone introduce themselves. I'm Tom McNellis. I'm from the Energy and Climate Committee.
Andrew Shearer, Recycling and Open Space.
Kim St. Aubin, Assistant DPW Director.
Gary Senecal, and I am a volunteer for the Climate Action Committee.
Stephanie Sykes, Natural Resources One.
Olivia Richards, and from the high school.
Genevieve Smith, also from the high school.
John Boyney on the committee.
John Roughley, DPW Director.
Okay, and online, we've got, in no particular order, I guess we'll start with Harriet, who's on the bottom front and center.
Hello, Harriet Emerson, on the committee.
Shana.
Shana Brogan with the town of Eastham.
Cheryl.
Cheryl Gale, volunteer.
And Jack.
Jack Hadley, a volunteer, and just FYI, I need to sign off a little after 5 o'clock, so it'll be a short meeting for me.
All right, thanks for joining us. And Roberta.
Hi, I'm Roberta Longley, and I am a member of the committee.
Welcome, everyone. So we'll start with, as we usually do, with public comment. Any comments on items not on the agenda? Okay. With that, we're thrilled to have our DPW team here. John, I appreciate you taking the time off to do this in your busy day, busy week. I think very exciting to be talking and ramping up as we go through the climate action plan this year. A lot of what we all do kind of revolves around areas that you all have boots on the ground for. So we're really excited about it. So I'll just pass it on to you and let you do introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm the DPW Director, and we're here to help you out and whatever, any information we can gather for the committee and to help you move it along. And Stephanie is with Natural Resources. She is going to be the point person. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, I sat in on the initial meeting for climate action plans. So looking forward to see where that goes. And then if you're not familiar with our department, we're under DPW. That's why I'm here, Kim and John. And our department covers general natural resources. So we're excited for the herring to start running and all that good natural resources stuff. But we also have the harbor master, shellfish, and animal control in our department as well.
Very good. And
I'm Kim. I'm just here to help facilitate also.
So John, what are the main areas where we can help you? Because I think a lot of what we're trying to do, of course, is assist the town in areas, strategic areas.
Well, I think once you've identified what you're looking for, obviously vehicles is a big energy and climate action I guess tool object that needs to be, there's always more efficiency can be improved in that. So yeah, I guess we're here to assist you in whatever we can, building energy, our building department. We have quite a few buildings in town, so as far as upgrading energy.
Very good. And we're working closely through Shana in terms of the green communities, which overlaps a lot into those areas of buildings. And we're very interested in helping not only looking at the areas where we can get more efficiency and maybe save some money, but also areas where we can look for grant opportunities that come up and recommend those over to Shana for consideration. Because there's a lot of things out there, and it's a little dicey right now from the feds, but there's still a lot of stuff going on in the state. And I think it's been really interesting to see some of the things that Barnstable's done. If you haven't, we have some info on their microgrid project that they got. I think it was 45 million or maybe 54 million, I think, in grants to upgrade their emergency facilities, put in solar, put in battery. Very interesting project. Obviously, something of that size is something way down the road, but you know, in terms of strategic planning, that would be, you know, great interest.
Hey, Tom, I'm sorry. Elaine's waiting to get let into the meeting.
Oh, I don't know where Devin went to.
Because I texted her, she says she's waiting to be let in.
Okay. Stephanie, are you able to let her in from down there? Oh, there's. Oh, you don't see her? Oh.
I'll let anyone in.
Okay, great. You're watching. Great. Cheryl, let Eleni know that we don't see her in the meeting link. All right. Any items of discussion we want to bring up while we have DPW crew here?
I guess I have one question. I'm part of a working group that's focused on stationary energy and the needs and sources for that, and with a focus, as you might expect, on clean energy solutions for needs related to that. And so I'm wondering if we want to be of support to the town as it considers things like installing solar solar systems. Is DPW a good source for data for us to go to for that kind of thing, or what would you typically recommend?
I would probably recommend the finance director, Rich Bienvenu. He's pretty much in charge of our solar. Is that correct, Shana, saying that? He's pretty much the point person for the existing solar we have now.
I can't see what she's doing.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Reaching out to Rich he would be the point person for the information on our existing solar. I just spoke with him last week about that in detail. So.
John, do you want to say a few words about general projects you're doing while I see if I can lower that?
Sure.
Projector
Yeah,
screen.
we're
Shade you from the sun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've had some contact with Rich about the wastewater treatment facility plans and how we can, as a committee, how we can be useful. Thank you very much for that. How we can be helpful doing some analysis to better understand kind of what the likely energy demands are going to be from a facility like that, and how a solar installation could help offset partially or maybe more than that those demands. So we're at the stage of trying to understand what the projections are for the facility, and so that's why I was wondering about what sort of the best source of data would be on what's expected, what's planned, what's the timeline for that facility. We have some information that's come in, but I thought when I had you sitting next to me, I would just ask you.
Yeah, at this time, you probably have that same information I have. I haven't been involved in really any of the wastewater planning yet.
Okay.
So,
I have a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tim has,
Okay.
I have what has been submitted to SRF. So,
I'm sorry.
so the building has to be submitted for funding. So that's that's where they are right now.
Okay.
So there are some projections on the building, but again, that hasn't been approved yet. But I do have some stuff that I can give you.
Okay, that'd be great.
In general, at what point do things come into your, onto your desk as they transition into or out of capital planning and into, go go buy it and then receive it and put it into play. Do you get involved in that whole process?
Pretty much from the beginning, the bidding phase, right through the process, yeah. Obviously, so we have the capital plan, and as items come up on the plan, that were previously developed or as we develop them, yeah, we're pretty much involved in the whole process as far as our department.
What would be helpful in terms of doing some research that we can share with you to maybe help decisions on the types of energy efficiency technology, or, you know, to use or not use? I know that that's always going to be a difficult decision as you go into a bid. What is usually needed, or what would you like to have for making decisions like that?
Well, I guess it depends on really what it is. If it's vehicles are tough right now, it's the larger vehicles, as far as electricity and electrifying a larger vehicle, they're tough in this climate. So, and then as far as billings go,
I'm sorry, John, when you said they're tough.
it's tough.
What does that mean?
They're the vehicles, the larger electric vehicles that are designed today can't hold up to the climate.
Oh, I see.
So as far as plow vehicles, dump trucks, the demand on the vehicle itself is on the electrification is just, it's too much. I mean, if we were running box trucks up the road a little lighter and, without the heavy load, but for DPW's larger vehicles, it's tough right now to look at electrifying. Maybe the smaller fleet down the road, the lighter duty trucks, something we could look into. And as far as buildings go, it's really, the town would like to keep up with the energy efficiency, as a whole anyway. So the more we can get, the better when it comes to the facilities. It's just, funding's always.
Yes.
We love to have state of the art, certified buildings, but.
I think we end up Band-Aiding a lot. It comes to us kind of at the end, this is broken. It needs to be fixed now,
Yes. Not a lot of wiggle room when that happens, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's hard to plan, and it breaks down when we don't have time to plan to make it, the most efficient, So if there were grants available and funding was there already, but it just doesn't seem that way.
But Rich is really great too, great support, and is trying to get better at this and look more into the future. So he's been really working on, trying to identify this stuff ahead of time.
Great. Maybe that's something that, if we can kind of get a feel at some point for what your long range planning looks like, there are things such as electric chargers that, it's kind of the chicken and egg thing. We can potentially scrounge around and see what's out there for grants. Typically, they don't want to go too far in advance of when the fleet gets electrified. And I think what you already have out in the parking lot here, I assume, is sufficient for the smaller vehicles, right, that we have. Okay. Any other thoughts from the team?
I don't know, Tom, I just raised my hand. I have a question, generally speaking. So I come from the energy efficiency space, and I've spent decades working in this space. And typically, when you analyze opportunities, when you want to manage something like the energy, you want to find if there's opportunities for more efficient technologies and things like that. The journey starts with, what are we managing? And, in this case, utility data, historical utility data. Do we have a good repository of how much kilowatt hours was consumed by month, by building over multiple years? could be interesting to see and how to benchmark buildings against typical municipal buildings and kind of start from a top down there and kind of figure out like where do we need to prioritize, where is our energy going, and what could we potentially manage to produce with, say, solar or other types of opportunities. So the question is really like, do we have a good history available to us that we could analyze? And that would be solving two problems or two objectives. One is, what are we doing with stationary energy and what could potentially be done with solar? And so that's kind of our mandate with the stationary energy group. So with that background, do we have a place where we can go in and actually look at a tabulation or spreadsheet or something that shows, you know, what consumption and cost that we have incurred in different municipal buildings?
Yeah, again, I believe Rich has a lot of that information, so
yeah,
I think that's something Shana would probably gather up if you
okay. Because it's also useful not only to look at things in terms of what they are, but also how they've trended, you know. So like if you can have enough of a history, we can maybe see various things that, you know, that can be deduced from a more analytical approach. Mm-hmm. And then we can begin to sort of think about, okay, how do we handle that from a practical perspective? And then we can figure out what are the best decisions that we can make today in this very dynamic environment that we're living in right now.
And I'll jump in because we have been talking to Shana about getting the latest tabulations. And I know Rich had indicated he would be putting that together, I think, with Mira. And of course, town meeting is you know, getting juggled in the middle of all that. So
yeah, Rich
so yeah, I think Olav, yeah,
the data, I think, and I know that we do have reporting requirements for green communities, so I don't know how fine detailed it gets, but yeah, so we can look into that either between Mira or Rich, find that information. We were a green communities member, I think, starting in 2022, and I don't know from the outset of when we applied what kind of data we had to submit prior to that, but you know, at least it'll be a couple of years worth of information.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Roberta, I think you had your hand up.
Well, I keep putting it up and putting it down. I just wanted to reiterate that we do have a lot of data since we've become a green community, and it's information that is sent electronically to the state every time for the annual report for green buildings. So it's by facility. I believe when I've looked at the report, that's what it looks like. So we have several years of data on that. In terms of cost, that's not something that we share with the state, but maybe that's something that Rich could help us with on that, to just get a history on that. I think that would be a really great start.
So one other general question, forgetting for the moment that you're sitting in front of the Energy and Climate Action Committee, what are sort of the biggest challenges for a DPW? What are the sort of things that you focus on day to day that are most troublesome for you?
an energy level and on a climate action level, I would say our HVAC systems throughout the town, that is
just maintaining.
Yeah. A lot of systems are old, outdated, and not efficient, and they break a lot. We're constantly in repairs through each season. So coming up on the warmer season, then everything will be broken. It's
just when you need it.
Yeah, it's a constant, you know. So if we can get to that point where we're, you know, we have new systems, upgraded systems, heat pump systems. I would say that's one of our biggest challenges.
Is there some like rough percentage of your systems that you would like to see upgraded at this point? 100.
100, I think, was the answer on that one.
90.
One building getting a complete overhaul right now, that's the fire department. They're getting a complete new system, and after that, every building is in need of something. So 99%.
Although I think in the facilities, what is it called? The maintenance, facility assessment document
Yeah.
from last year, it looked like a lot of that was being pushed off into, according to the consultants, to future years.
Yeah, that assessment, you'd have to go back to the energy assessment. I think the buildings assessment was a broader spectrum and it didn't really narrow down on the equipment itself. I mean, everything that we have, there's some systems that we have in play right now that aren't very old, but the components, some of the components with it are outdated and failing. Circulator pumps, you know, old, outdated, inefficient circulator pumps. So yeah, but the overall systems themselves are just not efficient for today's times.
And it looked like that plan was more putting, stakes in the sand based on how old the system was, not as much assessing their conditions.
So I do believe the town had an energy assessment done by Rise Engineering. Probably dove into the systems themselves a little deeper.
There was, I'll mention one other thing that is probably not big on your list, but came up to us from the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitors Center, which is kind of interesting because although it's a tiny little building, they say that it's one of the busiest visitor centers on the Cape in terms of number of visitors coming through there, which is very interesting. And the thought was that if they had, something other than the couple of window air conditioners that they've got, and maybe had some insulation put in, they could maybe stay open a little bit later and reach more people. So that was kind of an interesting observation. And I don't know whether green communities could potentially apply to that sort of a building that is probably just a sieve in terms of energy going out the window.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's that building could definitely use, an energy upgrade. And in the summer, they estimate 30,000 cars drive by there a day.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I 100% agree with you that building, if we could do something with that, that would be great.
There'd be an interesting trial, maybe easy trial for certain technologies that you want to put in there. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. You're certainly welcome to stay, but if you guys want to scoot out, we won't hold you. You got busy days and I'm sorry?
Can I ask Shana a question?
Oh, yeah.
John, the composting area, or that area that is very popular now. And I understand it's getting even more popular as time goes on. Has the solid waste gone down in terms of food scraps and food waste going into solid waste? Has that gone sincere? Can you speak to that? Has it gone seriously down?
I can say the program we implemented last year, the bins that we get, they're filling up every week.
Yeah.
For the most part, in the summer, I think, what are they doing? One full container a week in the off season?
Yeah, in the summer, it's 3 full containers.
We're definitely seeing a difference,
that's what I hear. Yeah.
And
So in your estimation, you'd say it's done quite a good job in keeping food waste out of solid waste?
Absolutely, yeah, people are using it, yeah. I think with more education, they'll continue to use it.
Sure. Thank you.
And while we're a good topic, while we're talking compost, a shout out to the Green Club, who I think y'all just got approval, is that right? To do composting over at the high school?
Yeah, so we started it when our second semester started. So we were able to get funding from the school. They paid for it. We did a whole presentation to them. So that was really awesome. And so we've had it for like a month now.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit tough, like getting people to put everything, but the way the custodians did it, it's pretty simple. So now we have like people at the lunches to help direct it. So I think like hopefully we'll see a difference in the food waste from our school too. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's Black Earth as well, right?
Yeah.
Black Earth
Yeah, it
composting that we're
is.
using.
Oh, that's great.
And that's less of a load coming into your solid waste facility, which is, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you. Oh, Roberta.
Hi, John, since you're here, I thought it would be a good time to ask you, and Shana, you're also there. You've been working together, I think, with the consultant that was awarded Eastham through the Department of Energy Resources, if I'm not mistaken. I think you met with them maybe a month ago. And I wondered if you could give us an update on where that is, whether it's Eastham who needs to get back to them with information, or that now it's in the consultant's court. So just wondered if you could speak to that.
Yep, I reached out to them last week to see, I sent them a whole slew of information. I didn't hear anything back. So I reached out to them last week and asked them if they needed anything from us or if they were all set. And they said they have everything they need. And that was it. So I'm gonna reach out to them maybe in the next week or so and see if what the next steps are, when we can expect to kind of, meet with them again, or whatever their vision is for how to move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Do you compact aluminum cans?
Yeah.
So you just take them out and just ship them out in a big container,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
thank you, that's
Yeah.
all.
All right. Well, with that, let's move to town administration updates. A good segue to Shana.
So for the EV chargers, which was kind of recently discussed, Rich has heard no word from the consultant, and he's thinking we probably don't have the funding anymore, or we likely won't have it. So I'm thinking it would probably be best to maybe set up a meeting with Rich, now that you're talking about other chargers in town and whatnot, and kind of think about what is needed there, what other funding sources maybe we could, tap into, or whether maybe for the next town meeting, there needs to be an article for EV chargers there, or match funding if there's a grant out there that requires match funds from the town. So I think probably sometime in May after town meeting, just meeting with him to kind of go over that and any other topics that you might have.
That'd be great. And yeah, we'd appreciate that, Shana, getting that set up. Because I know there's things that we've been looking at in I'll say early back of the envelope kind of stuff on wastewater treatment facilities. And it's interesting that the Orleans facility, they're telling me, is using something like 900 kilowatt hours per year, and it was only projected to use 400. So that they got a bigger facility than us, most likely. But perhaps this is very much worthwhile taking a look at as that data comes in from the planning. So May might be a good time for that.
Okay, so green communities. I talked to Rich, the fire department, he told me was done. It sounds like it's near done or maybe done for the HVAC there. And for the spring round of grant funding, the funding, I guess, from the original allocation hasn't been closed out completely. So we're not going to be in time for any sort of grant application through green communities this spring. But he said in the fall, the plan is to go for upgrading the HVAC for town hall and the police station. But he said if you have other ideas that you'd like to put forward instead of doing that, he's open to hearing what your ideas are. And
is there a limit, Shana, on what we can ask for at that point? Is there an allocation?
I don't know, but I'm thinking that's going to be a lot to request.
Yeah. Those are
I
pretty
don't know how
important,
much more that smaller building will cost to insulate, but in comparison to the rest of what's being asked for, it won't be much. So for your budget, I reached out to Rich and he said that he can't have one line item in the budget for the committee. because there's so many committees in town. So the, one of the departments has a budget for boards and committees, and they have $5,000. He said you can use that budget for your expenses. And he said if there's other items like training and things like that, there's another line item in another town department that you could tap from. Oh, it was economic development has the budget. And so I'll let Paul know to expect that there will be expenses coming from his budget at some point in over the course of the year. I updated on the decarbonization plan. I don't know if you had any other thoughts or questions on that. But I can let you know whenever I hear back from them. And the website, Kayla made a few changes. I guess there were a few changes left to make, but if you have like a list of changes or, you know, updates that you'd like to make, you can just send them to me for the new changes, because she did make quite a few to the website that was there before. So if you haven't looked at it, it is live on the town website right now.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Thanks,
Thank you for
Shana.
that.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you.
And that's it.
Thanks. Any other thoughts, discussion? Okay. Very good. With that, we have the minutes from the last meeting to, thanks, John, appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have the minutes from the last meeting to approve, John.
Any, yep, minutes, any corrections or additions to the minutes from, this would have been, February 10th.
February 10th, yes. It's in your meeting packet. We can put it up on the screen if anyone wants to see it again. Do I hear a motion to approve? Eleni, you have your hand up.
Moving to
Oh, oh, yeah, I think you're on mute.
Motion to approve.
There we go. Thank you. Do I have a second? Do we have a second? John, you can second.
I will
I'll
second.
All right.
I was feeling lonely there, people, please.
John seconded. Any questions or on the minutes? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are. Ooh, that's what, 5, 6, 7, 6, 0, 6, 6, 0. Very good, thank you. All right, now the next part of the agenda, as you can see, we've rearranged it a little bit. And this was part of the discussions that we had back in December at our goals meeting. The thought was, once we had the goals in place, and thank you everyone for working so hard on kind of researching what we should be doing and putting in place some good goals for this year. But the discussions at each meeting, the idea is to have it organized per each of those key goals. And then on top of all of that, Roberta and I are charged with helping with interactions, either between the working groups or with, you know, helping facilitate communications and interactions with others outside our committee. So with that, what we've done is kind of allocated 5 to 10 minutes roughly per topic. Any month that we have a bigger discussion in a particular topic area, you know, please ask the goal leader to let me know, and we will allocate that appropriately. Given that we've just kind of gotten started in each of these areas, I didn't get any specific requests for this month. So again, roughly a 5 to 10 minute discussion, and thought is to go through, you know, updates from what the working group is doing, what they may need help with in the future, what type of associated events or other information that you might want to share. All right, so I'll turn it over to John and the stationary energy working group.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Thanks. So for the stationary energy goal and working group, we've got two broad initiatives that we're going after. One is to develop what we're referring to as a how-to guide for transitioning residential homes from oil-based heating, cooling to something that's electrified using heat pumps. And the idea is to identify a handful of cases, a handful of types of situations that people would be in, and provide sort of tailored guidance to them about what questions they need to answer and how they can make that, navigate that kind of a transition. And I want to get to Jack before he has to leave, because Jack has been doing some of the initial legwork to figure out how we can move forward on this, and including talking about the kind of data that we need. Jack, can you just take like a couple of minutes to talk about what you've been doing and what we're wrestling with at this point?
Sure. So what's happened so far is that we've gone to the town's assessment database to try to get different kinds of configurations of homes that have oil heat. And we thought we would focus on 3 different sizes: 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom plus. And we've calculated the square footage of those homes and the numbers of rooms and the number of bedrooms. So that's just a very rough start. I think that the challenge will be trying to figure out, well, how old is the heating system? That we can only guess. Do they have window air conditioners? How difficult will it be to remove the existing oil system? So basically what I'm doing now is just sort of checking various sources that are available to try to come up with whatever details we can. Ultimately, if we can, it would be nice to be able to get input from maybe heat pump installers and get their perspective on what's involved in making the transition. That's a little bit down the road. So bottom line is sort of just starting, collecting information, and trying to figure out the cost of the various options as well.
There might be an opportunity to talk to Rise Engineering, and we could probably get to them through Cape Light Compact, and perhaps they could give you kind of a discussion on what they've seen in the region, and specifically in Eastham, maybe even, right? Maybe give you some guidance on what.
Right. That's a good thought.
Another thought could be, there may be, they're actively doing audits and things like that. How many people have a recommendation from RISE that they haven't acted upon? Things like that could be interesting to find out too. Because the audit doesn't require you to do anything. Although it's required in order to do the heat pump conversion.
Yeah, we also are hoping to be able to find a few families that have actually made the conversion in the last year to get sort of their stories about what was involved. And we have, Olaf is one, he's volunteered so far. and if people know of other, friends, neighbors who have converted from oil heat to heat pumps and would be willing to talk to us, that would be terrific.
Yeah, I think that's one of the promising options. It would only take a few cases like that of real people, quote unquote, who have gone through it to provide some really helpful insights, I think. But the RISE engineering is a good suggestion. We can definitely follow up with that. So
very good. And there are a few people, and some of them have been to our meetings, who we've helped out. Mike and I have done some work when they came to us after different conferences or workshops, I should say. So we could talk about that and maybe approaching them if you know what the ask is that you'd like to get from them. We can make that contact.
When Mike gets back with us at the end of this week, I'll make sure our working group is meeting early next week, and this is one of the main things we'll talk about. But I'll make sure to get with him with questions.
Great,
about
perfect.
So that's one of the two.
Okay, I'm signing off. So long.
Thanks, Jack.
The other initiative that we were focusing on under this goal 2, we've kind of talked about and touched on in the discussion with the DPW team, It's a focus on opportunities for leveraging renewable energy more for municipal operations, for municipal buildings in particular. And right now we're focused on the wastewater treatment facility, and acknowledging that the timeline for that may be shifting because of constraints on capital flow and whatnot. We're trying to get to a position where we can provide at least a kind of a back of the envelope analysis, I think, of what the needs might be coming out of a facility like that, and how a solar energy array of some sort might help meet those needs and at least offset some of the demand. If the demand turns out to be like Orleans experience and they estimate it's 400 instead it's 900, that can be a problem. But that's exactly the kind of thing we'd love to avoid, help the town avoid. And if we can do some good initial analysis of whatever information is available about what the operations are going to look like, obviously the basics on the physical plant for the facility, and then sort of marry that to some data that we might be able to get from CVEC on what the market's like and what's possible for options for systems. We can take that, do some preliminary analysis enough to kind of get smart on things and generate some finer grained questions, and bring that to Rich and maybe to John Roughley as well, and kind of talk it through and get some initial ideas going, and then from there refine the work so that we can eventually generate some more or less formal recommendations for the town, and really try to put it in the larger context of what's going on with the town in terms of its energy consumption, demand, and existing systems for that. So this is a fairly significant undertaking. Olaf and Mike in particular are going to be kind of crunching the numbers, doing the analysis for us on that. If we could find a little grant money here or there to help support that analysis, that would be a good thing. And this is something we're planning to do over the course of this year. But we're hoping, we're planning to have something that Rich can react to much sooner than that. I don't have a formal schedule for it yet, but we'd like to get and sit down with him and talk through some initial analysis sometime soon, shortly after town meeting, probably. So that's where we're at. That's broadly speaking what we're doing.
I think Shana has a question.
Yeah, Shana.
I don't have a question, but I just spoke with Rich last week about the solar, and I don't know how much data you have about it, but based off of the elementary school, the library, the landfill, somewhere else, that generates about 60% of our use in town of electricity usage. And he said that in the past year, the landfill, and granted those solar panels I think are from 2012, and we have a 20-year lease with them, they generated 732 kilowatt hours. So if you're talking about 900, is that what you said for Orleans?
Well, that's what Orleans has.
That's what Orleans,
but I
yeah.
think Orleans is a much bigger facility than what we're getting here,
I would assume.
is my guess.
Can I just quick clarification? I hear kilowatt hours, and I hear are we talking about kilowatts, like the demand?
Kilowatt hour is what they use for the year.
So that's peanuts. I mean, my 1 year consumption is about 7,200 kilowatt hours. So unless it's just like some minor agitation pumps and whatever, that sounds like a very low consumption.
Yeah,
maybe we'll look into the units.
We gotta look into. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A good question to pose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think John Londa would be very willing to meet with the team, maybe even to give a tour of the treatment facility, so you can kind of take a look at what they've got, and maybe we ask those questions, Olaf, as to what they're really utilizing.
Yeah.
We work through you to
sure
set that up, right?
Sure.
That would be good.
Okay, Kathy.
So I just had a quick question for you. You know, a lot of these discussions go on at the Capital Projects Committee.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's sort of the nexus, if you will, for the work on the wastewater. I mean, it might be worth, and it might be worth reaching out to somebody on the Capital Projects Committee to talk to them about what I guess sounds to me like maybe I'm going to call it the solar assist, if you will, for the
Mhm.
wastewater treatment plant.
Mhm.
So, you know, I know Jackie Beebe's involved in that, but I know one other person who's on the Capital Projects Committee, but you guys probably know more.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion. And Shana had set us up with someone from the committee. So yeah, so we are talking to them. That's a great suggestion. We're on the same wavelength. That's good.
Yeah, good. And I think also it's worth mentioning too that, you know, in these days, you know, energy independence, self-reliance, things like that. I mean, you know, kind of like it is part of what we're trying to do in many ways, generating it locally, distributed generation, basically. So it ties into kind of like, you know, being a little bit more self-reliant as a community, you know, in terms of being able to harvest, you know, the resources from the sun.
Very good. And I also mentioned, and Shana, this ultimately is a potentially question that comes over to you in the future. Orleans evidently went through Titan Energy for their latest round of solar bids as an alternative to CVEC. So it'd be interesting to find out how that process worked for them, and if it did work, whether that's something that could be or should be considered for Eastham. So just a note for the future. They claimed it counted as a competitive bid.
Did they pay this company?
Evidently the company gets paid when out of the contract from the contractors. I don't know how that really works, but that's
All
kind of
right. That's interesting. Yeah, we'll have to learn more about how that one, you know, came about.
Yeah, but my understanding was that they didn't have any upfront costs on that. Okay. Very good. Thank you, John. Transportation. So I know Mike couldn't make it today. I think Harriet, if you have anything that you'd like to throw in, please feel free. I also have a couple of things to add from a few things we've heard.
I haven't had any communication with Mike.
Yeah, he's kind of been off.
Yeah.
Okay.
There will be progress, and so I'm back next month, and hopefully Mike is as well. But nope update. So the transportation committee is doing our effort to keep the meeting succinct. So anyway, more next month.
So I will mention also in my chat with John Londa, Orleans is getting some fast DC chargers. They're going to be across from the Sparrow. We'll cross our fingers, Shana, if hopefully the monies that I assume we're already obligated don't get clawed back for our town hall chargers. That would be tragic. The other piece, and yeah, Roberta is still here. Roberta, I know we had talked a little bit about the zero energy vehicle, zero emission vehicle, first type of policy. And I think that's something that you've been gathering some information on, and maybe something we can move forward on in the future.
Yes, it's part of to have a policy such as that for our town. We currently have somewhat of a policy relating to more efficient vehicles, and we had to enact that or develop that policy and have the town, the select board approve it when we became a green community. That was one of the criteria for becoming a green community. Now that we are looking to become a climate leader designation, which the value to that is that we will be in line for future state grants for a lot of our decarbonization projects. to become a climate leader, you have to then have what they call it, zero, and I'm sorry, help me.
Zero emission vehicle
That's it.
first.
Right. In other words, the town commits to zero energy vehicles over the course of time. It doesn't mean it has to be done next year, but that the town has a commitment and a plan to move forward with that, particularly as technology improves. As John was saying, some of those larger vehicles right now is just not very feasible. But as the industry grows, the town makes a commitment to move forward with that policy. And so we have a number of sample models that Orleans created one recently, and its select board approved it. The Department of Energy Resources also has a sample plan online that we could take a review of. So I guess that's a conversation with you, Shana, at some point, when you feel that we can look at that or at least talk about it, maybe draft something up and then think about maybe that's something to add to the select board to review. So I'm throwing that out there, I guess.
And we do have an example from Orleans, which passed their ZEV first policy in, I think it was November. And they did some updates. As I understand it, I haven't gone through in detail, but they did some updates to customize it for Orleans versus what they got from the state as a template. So that might be something that could be looked at as well. What?
I lost internet, but so I missed some of what was said, but I can I think it would be good to check in with the decarbonization plan process, because I'm not sure, because part of that is planning, like when the vehicles will get replaced and at what percentage. I'm not sure where along the process they would recommend us doing that policy, or if we can do it anytime and it doesn't coincide with that.
I think it's probably separate, but if we're working with consultants to get their point of view on that would be very, very useful, I think. If you're going to have the conversation about the buildings, you could also be having the conversation about the vehicles. But again, I think that especially reviewing Orleans and seeing what that looks like, it could be fairly straightforward for a town the size of Eastham, I think, to come up with a policy and an explanation for the select board as to why this is valuable and what it fits into in terms of future funding for a lot of the work we want to do.
Very good. Thank you. Next up is climate adaptation, and Eleni. And I'll mention that in the packet today, the full set of goals is in there, including an update from the climate adaptation working group. So perhaps Eleni, you want to mention what y'all did there and what the changes are?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's the changes are relatively minor. So somehow we are engaging now in considering adaptation, and I guess a little bit of what that means is also mitigation in terms of climate. And this is a new work group. So we're just beginning to really get our feet wet with this. And, the main thrust of our work is really to understand what kind of adaptation strategies have been considered, what are our vulnerabilities in the town of Eastham, what are the assets we have, and kind of understand the existing mitigation plan, identify one or two of us to participate with the town as they revise the plan for 2025 through 2030. I guess it would be 2026. I'm not exactly sure, but during this year, there's going to be a revision. So what we're working on right now is just beginning to digest the existing plan so that we can kind of get it under our belts, have a general understanding of this, and then make a meaningful contribution, if we can, to the larger plan as it's coming to fruition. So let's see. So that's one piece of the work. The other piece is really going to be how to think about engaging the community on this so that they can understand it, understand where our risks and vulnerabilities are, and what their role is in helping with adaptation strategies. And this includes, just for the record, we talk a lot about erosion and coastal issues and flooding, but there are other risks associated with fire, associated with other weather events. And so it's actually been a slightly illuminating process to dig into this a little bit. So that's pretty good. And then finally, there's a proposed coastal resiliency bylaw that, I know nothing about as of yet, but, the goal here is to be able to also understand that and figure out how to communicate or engage the community in the understanding of that, and do whatever is necessary to help move that process along for the 2026 town meeting. And so that's as far as we've gotten, really. We have a couple of deliverables. We'd like to actually share what we learned with the larger committee. And when we're ready to do that, we have some, estimated dates of, completing some of these goals. We're kind of looking at them as late spring and October, late fall. So that's where we are. Roberta or Cheryl, anything to add?
Did you have a chance to go to the Resilient Coasts meeting this week?
I did not. Was it today?
No, we're talking, I think he's talking about the one that was put on by the state last week.
Right.
We both attended it.
Yes, we did.
Right.
How did that go? Or any reactions, impressions?
Do you want to speak?
Well, let me take a first crack at it. You can pick it up from there, Roberta. I think my sense of it was we're really coming in at the end of the process, that there have been discussions that have been ongoing with various stakeholders and interest groups over time. And this was essentially the last phase of the meeting. They had, this is a whole statewide thing. So they had maps about the areas of vulnerability statewide. We are an area of vulnerability, but because we are not a wildly populated area, we don't necessarily rise to the level of places like Swampscott and, some parts of the North Shore, maybe some parts of the South Shore. So, but it seems like a very interesting process. There's maps that kind of lay things out. Didn't dig into it a whole lot, but, I'm glad that we caught on to it. And I think it's, as I said, we're just beginning this process of starting to understand the thinking and sort of the gestalt around all this. And, I was glad to be a part of it. Roberta, what would you say?
Well, first of all, it is interesting that the state, and especially under the new governor, has made a commitment to a statewide plan regarding coastal resiliency. And this plan is a year-long undertaking, which of course involves a lot of public impact input. And this meeting that we attended, probably 20 minutes of it was addressing what was so far being proposed, and the rest of it was really polling the people that were attending the meeting, which was about 183 people. And so it's the state gathering feedback from stakeholders, essentially. But the maps, as Eleni said, were very interesting. And the state seems to be looking at it from three different aspects. One is people and housing, built infrastructure, and economy, and how each of the areas in Massachusetts are affected by this. For example, some communities, probably Boston, the Boston area, all three of those are considered high risk because of obviously the economy of Boston, the number of buildings, the number of human beings that live in Boston. Right. And then there are communities less so, of course, like the Cape and, north of Boston, Newburyport, Amesbury, which is very vulnerable to coastal storms. That's, as you know, that's very low lying. And so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And really, my biggest concern is that, yes, we know that the Boston area and certain other parts of the state, the impact is greater, no doubt, on all three pieces. But we don't want to be excluded from any help that we could get from the state in the future. So I hope that that is addressed at some point, because obviously the Cape is very important. It may not be a huge number of people, but in terms of economic impact with tourism and so on, it's a pretty, and human, culture, how important the Cape is. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. We'll keep an eye on it for you.
Very good. Sounds like a great start. And as you say, we all have a lot to learn here. It's
Yeah,
thank
it's a
you.
new thing, so it's kind of, I'm glad to be delving into it, because it's not something that, you kind of assume that the town has it, and the town might have it, but if we're not communicating effectively, if there's not really contingency plans that people are aware of, doesn't mean that whatever plans might be needed at any given time, that they'll necessarily go well. And I think, the California wildfires, my daughter lives in LA, and, there, in terms of the planning out there, obviously they evacuated many communities and, the whole 9 yards. And so, it was just very interesting to see how all that played out, and the effectiveness of actually their planning was really quite effective. For us, it would be good to really understand it, and then really be able to cultivate interest amongst the community residents and businesses, so that they understand what's necessary.
And the other piece of the hazard mitigation plan that's been in existence for many years in Eastham, having us be a little more aware of what is included in that plan may help us contribute to the overall climate action plan that's being devised. Because obviously the existing plans we have will be rolled into an overall climate plan. So feeling that we know more about this, I think, will allow us to contribute more effectively.
Very good.
Okay, so I don't know if this would be of interest to you guys, but in terms of raising awareness for sea level rise sort of within the community, the Green Club wants to do sort of in the warmer months in the spring an art installation, which is essentially paper fish on stakes, and they're different colors and different heights, which correspond with the projected levels of sea level rise. So, and it's sort of like helpful to visualize that. And it's like, you get a kit for it. We were at the Net Zero conference in the fall, and they had an example of these. I forget what the organization that makes the art is called, but so we were thinking of doing it at the high school, but also maybe doing it out in one of the Nauset towns. So I don't know if that would be helpful, if we could like sort of collaborate on doing something in Eastham. And I think that could maybe be helpful for raising awareness about sea level rise, like in Eastham.
Great idea. I mean, visualizing climate change is one of the biggest challenges we have, right? We see it in many different forms, but a lot of people, it's kind of invisible. So making it visible is definitely, I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's definitely something we should look into.
Yeah, so I forget what the name of the thing that says the fish is, but I can send it along to
That's great.
your email, or I can
Excellent,
send it
thank you.
along. Yeah.
And so you would be putting the kits up yourselves or giving kits out? What are your thoughts there?
I'm not sure. So at the high school, we were thinking of making it a school-wide thing where we go out and plant it like one day during the school day. For out in the town, it could be our club or sort of a volunteer thing with the Honor Society. We could plant it, or if we wanted to get more people involved, I don't know how that would work. People that aren't a part of the high school could also go and plant them. And it's on the fish. You also have the opportunity to write some sustainable practice on it, like for mitigating climate change. So that's like another cool thing that you add to it. So I'm not sure, but it's something to think about.
That's interesting. We've tried in the past at Wimla Weekend to have kind of interactive discussions and posters and whatnot. That if that's of interest to y'all, I don't know I don't think the school has a table at Windmill Weekend, but we do, and that's something if you want to join us to consider. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You have one as well.
I technically have two now, because I'm on the space as well, so.
Excellent,
We can
excellent.
figure something out somewhere.
And that might be great at places where people frequent, such as the swap shop,
Yeah.
the beaches, that's a really exciting project.
Yeah. So I know there was someone in the club who's super excited about this. She's really interested in it. So I could talk to her and she could maybe try to spearhead something like this. And I
Excellent,
can get back to you.
Really good. All right, thank you. Kathy.
So I just wanted to comment on that because such a great idea. You know what, the Audubon Society, they actually have signs that show you where the high tide would be in various years. And it's pretty scary and it's pretty effective. But if you might want to see if you can get permission from the town to put some information up there are a lot of town beaches, and that might be something that would get people's attention. If you put it at First Encounter or, any of the other beaches, the Cape Side beaches, because that's where the coastal erosion is going to be visible, and it's not under the control of the Cape Cod National Seashore. So, you have more opportunity, I think, to do that. I think it's really a nice idea.
Kathy, may I ask, what do those look like? Or are they like measuring sticks like they do with a flood, and like, it would be here and there's a certain height on it?
It shows you on the ground, how far up the high tide line would be, for in 2025, in 2020, in 2035. And it's not very flashy. I mean, if something was more, what's the right word? More interesting to look at, probably more people would pay attention to it. But it's, I mean, the number of feet or the number of yards that you see of the coastal erosion is pretty significant. So anyway, it's currently at the Audubon Society, but maybe the town would be willing to allow something similar at the town beaches.
Yeah, some kind of visual reminder indicators.
Right.
I was going to say that part of the power of the Audubon display is that these posts showing the markings are right on the pathways that you have to walk to move around the grounds, and so you're walking right there. You can see, well, the sea level is going to be up to here or whatever. It is pretty powerful.
But something you might want to consider. I mean, maybe that's something the high school might want to consider doing in the concert with the town.
Yeah.
Very good. Very exciting. All right.
I had one other comment, if you don't mind. Eleni was talking about the wildfires in Los Angeles, and we've seen them all over the news. But this past weekend on the east end of Long Island, which is where I live, there were four wildfires in the Pine Barrens and in the towns around there, which is remarkably similar from a geographic and point of view to the Cape. Right. And one of them was burned for days, right? For several days. So this is not, it's not just, the Santa Ana winds. There were 40-mile-an-hour winds here on Long Island for days and days and days. It's very dry, same conditions as the Cape. So it's, I think it's worthwhile, bringing that whole issue forward. Everybody seems to think about, adaptation only to the rise in sea level, but it isn't just that. The wildfires, I think, is going to have a more immediate impact on people's lives than the sea level rise.
Just to follow up on Kathy's comment, I haven't looked at the U.S. drought monitor this week, but knowing that Massachusetts is in a drought, I mean, this is all climate driven as well. The Cape is in a drought. So, along with perhaps the visual indicators of, the water line, the rise of the water level and the tide of that, but also just, building awareness, of the conversely almost, the drought as well. And then increase, when it's windy. Last November, when it was very dry and very windy, I had lived in California for a while, and I was very nervous when it's very dry and very windy. I get nervous. And so I think certainly that's a really good point. not only, once again, the rising tides, but also the increasingly dry environment and risk of drought and fire.
Yep, very real.
And one of our contacts that has been, I believe, accepted onto the climate action plan by the commission, who's from the Chamber of Commerce. I think he's the vice chair of the board, I think.
Yeah,
He was in forestry and worked in the Cape Cod National Seashore forestry division for I think he said 30 years, something like that. So yeah, there is some interesting folks nearby who who will be participating in various ways in and amongst the activities we're doing this year. All right, next up is the communications toolkit.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here since I've got a few things I want to talk through. So if you'll give me a second here. Sure. Okay. So thanks again to Shana and to Kayla, first of all, for the work on the web pages for the committee and really updating those significantly. This is how they look, how the landing page looks now. And I just wanted to talk about this because this is one of several things that are all under that communications goal area. So just a couple of things to highlight, and then I just will encourage everybody to check it out on their own. The left side navigation is very different now. It's much more streamlined, and it takes people to relatively concise pages, I think, that describe each of these major areas: adaptation, heating and cooling, etc., along with pointing people towards resources. The landing page has a summary description of the committee, and then we've got these interesting looking what's new committee events. Now, this is sort of an initial populating of these new events, because not all of these are new, but this is giving us a good idea of what we can do with this space. This is something the committee will want to manage and update month to month, perhaps on some sort of a cadence. And it's a nice, more colorful way to sort of flash up right up front for users what's happening with the committee. And in addition to that, you can, as a user of the site generally, you can sign up to receive updates from the committee, meaning you'll get updates every time there's something officially, I think, released, like an agenda for the meeting or what have you. I'm still testing to see what exactly that does, but that's something that I would encourage everybody to try out as well. So there, Shana alluded to this at the top of the meeting. There are a couple of things we still need to fix up here, but not major things. We want to just do a couple of additional edits, and we'll bundle those changes, those requests up, Shana, as has become our habit, and shoot them all over at once to you and for Kayla's attention. But this is a great enhancement to this as a resource. And one of the things we should do, I think, is get the word out using our own committee's mailing list to say, hey, come check out the new and improved website.
So John, is there an ask there for committee members and our volunteers to take a look at this, maybe send you any suggestions if they see any issues?
Yeah, it's an invitation and encouragement to do that. Yes, absolutely.
Do we want to set a date for that? I think Shana, I assume Kayla will be pretty much tied up till after town meeting, or at least once the warrant's published.
I'm thinking if you have any changes, I would get them to John like ASAP, like within the next day or so. And she can go ahead and make those changes, because I think they're working on putting together the town warrant. I just saw a draft of it kind of coming up. So I think and we're doing the electronic voting RFP and whatnot. So as soon as you can, ASAP. Otherwise, there's no guarantees on the them being made soon.
Right.
Okay, so do we want to say a couple days from now, Wednesday? Does that
Wednesday.
work for everybody?
Wednesday. Yeah, just take it as an opportunity to scan for, major issues in particular, if there are any, but, yeah, Wednesday, afternoon would be good as a deadline.
Okay, so yeah, so if everyone could take a look through, just browse through and make sure it kind of flows, trial run it. If you see any issues, and one issue that I had seen was in the committee charge isn't the latest, so that's one thing that needs to be updated. Do we know how those blurbs at the bottom get entered? Different newsy items.
I think we have the ability to specify what goes there. I mean, beyond that, more specifically, how they get updated, that I don't really know, but I think those are eligible to be modified and updated just like anything else on the page. So
I assume it's a PDF of some sort, or a PNG that we send through Shana to Kayla for posting on the site.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what formats are required, but I can find that out.
Like a PDF.
I'm sure she just used whatever was posted originally for the event to get it there. So, yeah, and as you have updates when events are coming up and whatnot, that could be in addition to if it's a Facebook posting or what have you, that could be just another place that it gets posted.
John, this is Roberta.
Yes,
I just went on to the page from my phone and it looks very, very different. One thing that I do not see is the left-hand navigation. That seems to not be showing up on my phone. So I would just check what it looks like on the phone, what it looks like on an iPad and on a tablet, and just make sure that we've got everything covered. Otherwise, I think, it looks so much more interesting and the color really adds a lot to the page. So yeah, congratulations. You did a great job on this.
Thank you for checking. I thought I checked the phone, but I will go back in and take another look. So, but that's important, of course. Thanks for that. Okay. All right. With that, I'll move ahead to a couple of other items that are under this. And yeah, this guy. If I can get this into a little more. So a couple of other things that fall under the communications goal area. We've talked about doing a newsletter, and I'm going to use air quotes for a newsletter and turn this over to Harriet here in just a second, because we definitely want to do something that's going to be pushing material, pushing information out on a regular basis to the community. But we, and by that I mean Harriet and I, in talking this through, but I think it's also reflects the will of the committee, don't want something that's heavy. We want something which is very concise, bullet level, etc. Harriet, you want to talk just a little bit more about what we're thinking there and what input we might want to try to get from the committee?
Sure. So like John said, a newsletter, it could be a news bulletin. I think newsletter implies a certain level of effort that I don't know that would be sustainable over a long period of time. So I think the overall purpose, whether we call a news bulletin or something, it's just providing an ongoing, regular means of providing updates, whether it's on a monthly update or bi-monthly or what have you. I think, we can just start somewhere and see how it goes. So perhaps one way would be to start simple. It's a one pager, call it a news update or what have you. I would also say kudos to John, because the outline you saw, I know John has put a lot of time and effort into getting us started, this communication plan started. So I really want to call that out. So anyway, once again, just an ongoing way of providing updates, what the committee is doing. One format might be with something with Canva, and so many of these, whether it's a news bulletin or it's a brochure or something, something in Canva and it has a format and everything's consistent. And then the different committees, whatever ongoing basis monthly or what have you, then would submit their information, would submit their updates, and everything is formatted. So the size of the format, the font, what have you. So it all just makes it really easy to do, because I think the easier it is to do, then the more successful and sustainable is going to be. So once again, it could be a preview. It could include, if there was a specific event that the someone in the committee just did, a little update on that. Certainly a preview of upcoming activities. And based on the information we just had, we could have information on such as, what's going on with just little nuggets. So nobody is doing a lot of original writing, because I think that could be a little onerous, but we could also just include little factoids about the impacts of climate change. Or also, did you know that if 1,000 households turn their thermostat up or down, it would have this impact? So perhaps an ongoing feature could be just things like that, have just really simple ways, low-hanging fruit that people can make an impact, or what might be an information resource. So those are just, some of the thoughts. And certainly, John made a really good point. All these communication should be strategic and proactive. So forward thinking as well, and then coordinated with the other communication outlets that we're using, whether it's social media or what have you. So that's all I have on that.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we think it's an opportunity maybe to have each of the goal areas kind of have a spotlight shine on them. In each newsletter, you might kind of on a rotating basis, you might say, this month we're going to feature transportation. We're going to have something from the transportation goal area. And next month it might be stationary energy, et cetera. So we're keen to have some input from the committee. It doesn't have to be in real time, but again, if people could share any thoughts that they have, we've got a few minutes now probably to do some discussion if that's okay, or we can just take it offline. And
yeah, let's take that offline. Yeah.
We would just welcome your input on like the cadence, how often we should be doing an update like this, and if there's anything in particular that you think would be a good idea to feature in something like this. And I'll segue from that into what's in front of you here, which is our outline for the toolkit, which is the main thing that we're on the hook to produce under this goal area. As Harriet said at one point, we're trying to think more and more about communications in this committee as not just reactive or not just tactical. We've got a special event to do, and we've got to do a certain amount of promotion of it, and we've got to evaluate it. But we also want to be strategic. We want to be thinking ahead of situations and events, and trying to make sure we're doing what we can to partner with people in effective ways, and to be messaging in certain ways, and sending certain messages. So that's part of what we want to use a newsletter or bulletin for as well. It's not just to inform people, but it's to message and to be strategic. And we think that the overall toolkit, one of the key pieces of it is going to be the guiding principles that we think should drive what we do for communication. We're reviewing various organizations, kind of how-to lists or to-do lists of ways to communicate about climate change. And we're going to distill all of that and include that as a single page in the toolkit for the way that we want the committee to be communicating. And then you'll see here on this list, the rest of the outline of what we see going into the toolkit, describing the stakeholders, the kind of key communication tools to work with, templates and examples of those, and then some of the nitty-gritty information you need: calendar of events, contact lists, checklists, and finally an impact assessment tool. That's a very quick rundown through the outline, but what we're envisioning is a folder of materials, a virtual folder. Each one of having each one of these is kind of a standalone piece. So if you're doing a special event and you need to know who the key points of contact are, where to go for vendors to get materials developed, you want to know what sort of a checklist to run through, you can just go in and pull out those standalone documents as needed from the toolkit. So this is the vision that we have for the toolkit right now. And we've got a plan of trying to get a draft together in the next couple of months that the committee can react to. We don't want this to be an overly produced thing that's super heavyweight either. We want to try to keep it concise and on the lighter side. And so we're going to move out to try to get something for the committee to react to fairly soon. And then get it reviewed and revised so that by summertime we've got something that we can use, we can actually apply. That's the game plan.
So would it and we certainly could do, set time on a future agenda, have a detailed discussion on this, and we should either that or we should have a separate in between meeting. That would be a public meeting for for everyone to come together second time in a month and discuss just that communication toolkit.
Right.
So I think we could do it either way. I don't know if folks have a preference one way or another on that. I hate to add too many more meetings to everybody's calendar. So perhaps a way to start, maybe if you were to poll each of the different working groups to see what their needs might be, what they see coming up, maybe this list you have would be a good set of items to get their thoughts on. The caution is you need to aggregate that separately and not serially, and then bring everybody back together again to have that discussion.
Right. Yes. Separately, not serially.
Yeah. Open meeting law.
All right. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I think that could be a good way to go. I mean, I definitely agree. It would be good to have a sort of standalone session for this, and how we prepare for that is key. I'm just trying to think a little bit about at what stage in the process that would make the most sense to do that, and probably earlier in the process rather than waiting until we've.
Well, let's talk about that. If you come up with a kind of a list of what you might want to ask everybody, I'll help facilitate getting that out to the group.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Sweet.
Excellent. Great work. Harriet, John, you all are doing some really good stuff there.
Thank you.
I think, Andrew, looks like you're getting ready to head out.
Well, the sun, yeah.
I know. Yeah, sun decides. So, well, let me just bring up something I was gonna hit a little bit later in the events section. So we'll just take that one piece, while you're still here. So the commission, the Cape Cod Commission, is going through. We'll talk about that in just a second. Going through their community outreach, and one of the pieces is a joint discussion between the recycling and ECAC with the commission and with Shana. And there is a I don't know exactly what the format what that would be, but that would be an open meeting with everybody invited from the two committees. We would like to do it in person, although I know there are a couple folks that are out of state. Mike in particular is not back. I understand it until end of April, I believe. I think that's what he told me. Yeah. But I think it would be very fruitful to have everyone in person for that, because we don't really know each other from the two committees. So somewhere on either at the library or town hall, But we'll let, the commission work with Shana on that. Because they will set that up. But we do have a set of dates that we have polled everybody on. And
Yeah,
I
I
know
sent
you.
it out to my people. I got one
Perfect.
response so far. I've nudged everyone again to get
Perfect.
more response. I'm hoping to have everyone's response by the end of the week.
Okay, great.
Because I don't want to drag it out longer than that. I'll pick a date for us, and that works for us.
Perfect.
It doesn't, I don't get them.
Okay.
I only have one person who's like, I can't do these days because of jury duty, so that's the only thing I got. Everyone's wide open.
Okay, so the two that look best so far based on folks that have given their preferences is either Thursday, April 10th in the morning or Friday, April 11th in the morning. And we have a couple runners up after that if those don't work for a bunch of folks in recycling.
I'm pretty sure those will work for almost all of, well, so far the people who have responded, it'll work for because jury duty person's not till the 14th.
Okay. So, and you have a meeting this week, correct?
I have a meeting next week.
Oh, next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like to obviously get
Yeah,
this
I'm gonna
back
do that.
to Shane and the commission as soon as we can so they can go on with the
Yeah,
planning
I
on
did
that
the
for
last
next
week,
steps.
so I'll give them a couple more days to
Okay.
rally and give you dates, or I'll just fix them.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the a joint working group. We had a discussion with just a couple of people from each of the two committees to look into a solid waste working group. And I did send out to everyone. In fact, John, since you have the screen, it's in the meeting packet towards the bottom. Just flash that up.
Don't
The
have it anymore, but
oh, sorry about that. But it is in your packet, the that exploration meeting on the collaboration between the two committees. And so I think we came up with some suggestions for the committees to consider, specifically looking at solid waste reduction and the transportation involved with moving solid waste
Yeah, I
around.
think mostly that group is where everything overlaps in the Venn diagram of things is transporting solid waste causes greenhouse gas. So really, if we hit one in just transporting, we hit both. That's why I asked about the compression of the cans.
Yeah.
Because I was under the impression we already did that. But like that could be just a simple practice, like, oh, we compress our cans into blocks and now we can fit 15 blocks instead of one truckload. Something like that could be easily be able to cut both. It doesn't really reduce the solid, but item compression reduces the.
Yeah, no sense transporting air, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what I'm trying to tackle,
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit type stuff. I think that our committees, that's just one area we can find. I think we'll find more as we work together.
Is that a little surprising not to have a compressor?
Yes, I thought they were gonna say yes when I asked the question, because I was already under the false impression that they did, because I thought I saw the equipment for it. So I was wrong about whatever I saw. So I need to get more info on that, but I think it's something we could easily implement, because the systems that are in place, it appears that it's already part of the system. So maybe we're just not utilizing it. I don't know.
So the framework that we talked about was to have a working group. So this would be a sub-quorum working group from each committee. So we can have up to 3 people from each committee plus volunteers. And that group, I think, would get together and discuss what would be, what kind of cadence for meetings and for that group, and then report back to the main committees each month with recommendations. I think it could be very exciting because if you look at what was done in the composting initiative, what was that, a year or two ago, when that, maybe even longer than 2 years ago when it started?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So I think for the Energy and Climate Committee, anyone who's interested in working, and I think both Harriet and Olaf had expressed some interest. I know you were at Harriet. I don't know if Olaf is.
Yeah, no, I am definitely very interested. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if Harriet is still on.
Oh,
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Are you also interested in the community? You thinking about that working group?
Yes, Tom, I am.
Okay. So if the Energy and Climate Committee is amenable to this, I would say, let's go ahead and let that group meet and then report back to us on what they recommend for structure and do the same back to the full recycling committee.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously myself and John are in it. We're gonna originally have Molly, but I think she's been injured, so she's still interested, but we'll chat at the next meeting, and I'll get a third enrollee, and then that'll be our working group as well.
Okay, great.
And we can just, did we say bi-monthly? I think that works still.
Well, I think that was one of the suggestions, but yeah.
If you guys want to do monthly, that's fine with me too. Just whatever works best.
Mm.
Whatever you think will work best, really.
I think we found with our working groups that sometimes it depends on what's going on that particular month. Sometimes
Okay.
they're meeting
Then
weekly.
we'll play it by ear.
So-
I'm trying to use other working groups for other things, like we're doing fundraising now, so I need a working group for that. So we're trying to do all kinds of things. So, thanks.
All right, so if there's any suggestions or others who want to join, the working group, please shoot me an email. And Andrew and I will be talking and
For sure, yeah, thank you.
very good. Excellent, thank you.
Tom, did you?
Thanks, Andrew.
Do you want me to project anything out?
Not anymore.
Forever, sorry.
Well, there may be something actually, so if you are ready, unless Roberta, unless you want to do it, there's a page on the climate action plan, which is our next discussion.
You want me to flash that up?
Yeah, that'd be great. So the
All right, so where is it?
all right.
Is that it right there?
Yes.
Engagement summary? Okay.
Yes, if you could maybe blow that up in a little bit
Yeah, let me get
larger.
some-
So the I don't know, is Shana still on? I
I'm
don't think
here.
s-
I'm just standing up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Shana, did you want to say anything about the latest meeting that that the core group had?
I'm trying to remember what we talked about. We talked about setting up one-on-one meetings
Right.
and, how that would be organized and the best way to go about it so that we heard from everybody, but we were kind of reducing the number of meetings that the Cape Cod Commission needed to organize. But that's all I'm recalling off the top of my head.
Right. Well, and I think we wanted to talk about that's interesting. Town of Eastham just issued a code red warning for our area.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Controlled burn at Fort Hill. Okay. So what's up on the screen right now is some high level notes. The community engagement plan is still being worked by the commission. But generally, this is the overview of what they're talking about. So we wanted to let everyone know, what's up and what's coming next. So there's municipal interviews that are going to be one-on-one, or if the department head is choosing, can be one on several. But that would be with staff, and I guess there are selected committees in that group. So I think we may fall into that first category. And then the next is the community organization, so external to the town staff and the government, looking at the National Seashore, the EPERDA, and the Nauset schools as examples. And I think a lot of those, in fact, all of those had reps. Well, I don't think Nauset schools had a rep at the kickoff meeting, but there are communications going back and forth to get those sort of things set up. That'll be followed by focus groups, and that'll be starting in the May and June timeframe. And that's kind of getting out to the community, the environmental justice communities, the community-based, faith-based organizations. They have some really interesting thoughts on how to reach youth. And I mentioned earlier not just the discussion with the Green Club, which I think is going to be a really exciting one for you all to do, but also the Nauset schools. They're doing a what are they calling that, Roberta? Do you remember? It's
You're talking about the middle school.
the middle school, yeah.
Yeah, I've forgotten the details on it, but I think it is a class that one of the teachers has received funding to do a project relating to the environment, and they've chosen climate action. And they've chosen, and we've agreed to have the commission and the town of Eastham work with the middle school in presenting some of our thoughts on what's going on with the climate action plan, and then the kids decide what their project is in this. And then they work together and make their presentation in June. So it might be a really nice inclusion into the plan itself, whatever it is they come up with. It's really a great opportunity to reach people that this age group, which we have never been able to do. So it's pretty exciting.
And then that June meeting, everyone will be invited to, as I understand it. So more to come there. And that is, I thought I had a date for that. I don't see it offhand. But I believe it was like the second week of June, something like that, Roberta.
Maybe even earlier, maybe the first week of June.
Okay, so that is coming up, and that I think that'll be very interesting to see what the middle schoolers come up with. Then there's going to be a series of pop-ups. Basically, the commission will have a table, and they're looking for potentially for the ECAC to help out with some of those tables. Places like First Encounter Beach, and just going in there on a warm summer day and talk about have a table there with some info. I guess much as we do at Windmill Weekend. Possibly the farmers market is another opportunity that's being considered. But areas where locals hang out. That'll be in addition to that, there's some structured workshops that'll be held in July and October. Those 2 months, I think they're talking 2 different workshops. And those would be larger, at the library type of events. And then, I mentioned that actually that exploratory education program is the Nauset Schools is underneath that, the middle school. All right, so very exciting items coming up, and keep your calendars marked for those 2 dates, April 10th and April 11th. Just put some placeholders on there because I think that's going to be really important for us all to be part of that in-depth discussion with the commission. All right, Robert, anything else that you want to add to that?
I think you've summed up what the working group met with. It was primarily the engagement summary, and it's quite ambitious, and I'm quite impressed by the amount of effort that the commission is putting into this. And again, I say how fortunate we are to be the chosen town for this, and it'll be really interesting to see. I'm so excited to see what evolves, not just for us, but also how this can be a template for so many of the other towns around here.
I just looked up the date for the middle school presentation, and it looks like it's targeted for June 9th. So again, you could put a placeholder on your calendar, and I think there'll be an invite coming out for that. Okay. That is, if you could forward ahead, John, to the upcoming events, we may as well roll right into that. And while you're doing that, there was a kudo from the commission on the survey. So they had reached out and asked for a copy of the survey reports, and so the deputy commissioner sent out kudos to the work that that you and Jack and the survey group did.
Great, appreciate that.
Okay, upcoming events. So March 25th is the presentation at the Snow Library. And much thanks to Roberta, who was working with CC, I believe, in terms of our interaction there. I think, Roberta, what do you recommend that we do in terms of helping publicize that?
Well, Tom, you and I talked about that a little bit last week. And I think that the biggest thing Eastham can do, well, our committee, is to send out a email blast to our email list, which might, I think we decided maybe a week to 10 days out would be helpful, and probably no sooner than that. And I actually, I don't know, as flyers, I guess those are important to a degree. There should be some in the library and maybe at the town hall. I've added the event to the Chamber of Commerce list of events. And I think, Tom, you mentioned that you would be trying to do a little post on Facebook.
On my personal Facebook page, I could post it on the, because we don't have a town or we don't have a committee Facebook page.
Right.
But I can post it on the Eastham community pages. Yeah, so I was targeting, I think next week, which gives about 2-week window to the event. The event is on March 25th. And I think if you scroll down, John, I believe the flyer is in there.
This guy?
Yes.
Okay.
You do have to register for that.
Yes.
You
Yes.
go to, yeah, you have to go to the lifelong learning page. Last I checked, it was not on the general library page, calendar page. And when you get into the lifelong learning page, you go down to the box, the link that says register for courses. This is considered one of the courses, although it's just a 1-day course. And they do request $10 donation, a suggested donation for it.
So you all, if you have some time on that day to either watch it online or to attend, I think it would be a great introduction to some of these adaptation issues we've starting to charge into. So I've got it on my calendar to try to attend via Zoom. You do have to register, just so you know. Also, FYI, Shelley McComb, she was actually present at our kickoff meeting of stakeholders in January for the Climate Action Plan. So she's clearly knowing what's going on in Eastham with us, and I think it would be great to attend this and find out what she's about, and maybe there is a future in connecting with her department and Eastham for coastal resiliency work.
So Roberta, it's Kathy. I posted this on the Aperta calendar on our website, but if you could send me this flyer again, maybe we can put it on our Facebook page.
Oh, great. Thank you, Kathy. I will do that.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of the country on that date. So Roberta and Cheryl, I just emailed the two of you saying, can one of you go to this? So, because it looks interesting, but I don't think I'm, going to be logging in from the beach.
All right, very good.
And Tom, I do need to drop off because I've got an elderly mom who I've got to deal with.
Thanks, Lenny.
Okay, thank you guys.
And I think this would be a candidate to put on the upcoming events portion of our website. So I think that would be something we could request. Okay, very good. The rest of the events I think we've talked about. There was one other, and I mentioned it, I think y'all may have heard of this already. There's Farmers Market Fridays coming up starting in mid-June in Eastham. Kind of an exciting opportunity. And as I understand it, there'll be a table there for the town administration, and perhaps we can get space there if we wish. So again, something to think about in the climate communications discussions.
Do you know where it is, Tom?
It's going to be at the Tea Time property.
Oh, okay.
When does it start?
Starts mid-June.
Mid-June,
Okay. On to the real quickly here, the chair's report, and most of this, I think we have discussed. Oh, Cape Light Compact is starting an energy coaching program. And if you scroll down again, John, towards the bottom of the packet, you'll all have this in the packet. So they've asked that we get the word out, and we thought the best way to do that would be through the energy and climate committees. So if you can scroll down, John, all the way to the bottom.
Okay.
You'll see the graphic. And what I'd like to do is suggest that the Energy and Climate Committee consider requesting the town to send this out in an appropriate fashion. It's not necessarily an email blast, but it's information that we'd like to get out to the town in whatever format, Shana, you and Kayla think are appropriate. Any thoughts, suggestions?
I just wanted to elaborate that this is really a big deal. The compact has apparently gotten more budget to actually have this coaching service and phone calls with somebody who can really walk people through this process. This is a pretty big deal and a big change. And I don't know, I haven't been around, but I don't know how publicized this has been. It really needs to be better publicized. That's all I wanted to say. That this is a really very important.
For Green Club, I run a stand, like I volunteer every weekend at the Orleans Farmers Market, and a lot of people come there, and it's like used clothes and stuff, but I could, if I printed that out,
oh, that'd be
put
great.
that at the table. And I mean, obviously I don't really know much about this, but if there's a link or I could print this out, then people could get information about it this way. I just nobody can see it, but yeah.
I don't see any reason why this couldn't be something that's on the landing page too, Tom, along with other, it doesn't have to be restricted to committee events, I don't think. So we have this posted at the foot of the website, and maybe we want to. Well, we're talking about doing an email blast already, right? For this, yeah. Will you do that?
Yes, so I'll make that request with Shana. And Shana, I don't know what's most appropriate for this. It's not a single event type of blast, but it's maybe a newsletter kind of thing, or maybe Facebook page.
Probably Facebook page, I would say. And it will get out. I think they have 3,000 something fans or likes on their page, so it'll get out to a good number of people.
Okay, very good.
I think it's also important, John, and we may want to take note of this in our stationary energy. I mean, it's important for us to realize that some of these objectives that we are trying to achieve are also objectives for this program. And so to the extent that we can tap into it, to align with it, to, like in terms of heat pumps and stuff like that, we should consider that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we should talk to them along with Rise.
Yeah. It may be Rise that is actually running the program. I don't know who actually.
No, we've got. So I'm putting my Cape Light Compact hat on. We've got a staff member that we hired, and you get an appointment with the staff member through the website, and you get a half-hour discussion with them, and potential for follow-ups. So that is online now and available, and it kind of gives you kind of a navigator aid going through the steps on what the compact kind of calls your energy journey, in terms of what you do next and what's available to you, and how do you go through that, how do you engage, and if you have anything in progress that's not happening properly, they will re-engage and help out.
I wonder if they would sit down with our working group.
Yes.
That would be very good.
Absolutely. I can make that request.
Yeah.
So just give me the ask that you want, what you're thinking, and let's talk.
All right.
I will mention that in addition to this energy coaching, the Orleans Climate Action Network is talking about doing some sort of energy navigator program as well. So I've heard a little bit from them. I don't have a lot of detail on that yet as to what they're thinking. They would like to consider doing something in collaboration with the climate committees from Eastham and Orleans. So as we get more information on that, I'll bring that up, and maybe we'll have somebody come here and talk about it.
That'd be great.
I saw
Okay,
that
so-
the town of Acton on a different municipal page, it highlighted that the town of Acton was doing a community coaching program, but it was a little bit different, where members of the community kind of came in and, you know, agreed to be a coach, and then one-on-one it was kind of like a neighbor thing, talking about their experiences with people interested in upgrading their system. So they did this really kind of funny YouTube video to promote it, and gave tours of their house and what they had done. So it's kind of, they got a grant for it. I can't remember the name of the business, but they did get funding for that.
Interesting.
Where did you see that, Shana, that intro?
I
Was it
saw it
at-
on a municipal, like a general municipal page, not like the town of Acton, but I can send you the link to it.
That'd be great.
I thought I saw it on the Mass CEC webpage for some strange reason, but it could have been some other thing.
Interesting.
Maybe that's where they got the funding, you know, through the Mass CEC, maybe.
Well, I know Mass CEC is doing a trial run with maybe with Lincoln. I can't remember. I think there's a one or two towns that they're working with now that they may roll out a bigger navigator program in the future. There's also a energy coaching program with Rewiring America, and I think that's who the OCAN, the Orleans Climate Action Network, is talking to get some training. So there's a lot of interesting stuff, and we've been from discussions this past year here in the committee, myself and others, and Gary included, has been helping poke the compact to try to get something in place. So yeah, little by little, we're moving forward, which is good. Okay, only got a couple minutes left here, so that is, I think that is about it. Yes. Any other business? That's all I have. Anything else anyone would like to bring up at this point? Topics. Okay, so in terms of the requests that we have for town support, we have publicizing the March 25th meeting at the Snow Library, the class, lifelong learning class at the Snow Library, and we're talking about getting something at the bottom of our webpage to put on there. And Roberta and I had discussed whether it was worth asking for something more than that. And I think, Roberta, what we kind of decided was, since this is not an organic event that the Eastham ECAC is doing, that we won't ask for a bigger email blast. But I think it would be great to get it onto the webpage. And then the energy coaching graphic that you saw, we'll make that request as well. Anything else for that I should put on my list for Shana? Not that we want to give you any work, Shana, but
there's just be the other handful of fixes to the web pages.
Yes, once you pull that together.
I'll pull that.
Okay. Okay, good. Very good. The next meeting is Monday, April 14th. And unless there's any other discussion, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I wasn't sure everyone wanted to leave. Maybe wanted to hang on for a bit longer. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you much.
Five now.
We made it.
Thank you all.